Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every Monday by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, or excuse me, each and every day. We are 40 days away from kickoff, so tell us who your favorite number 40 is, Jerry. I know you already got it. What do you got?
All right, who can guess this? Chat. 201 tackles, 53 tackles for loss, 21 sacks. Great All-American middle linebacker. Turned defensive lineman.
Turned barber.
Yeah.
Corey Redding, baby.
Yep.
40 days away. He is. He's got to be the best 40 I remember for sure in a Longhorn uniform, Jerry. Got to be.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. Definitely, too, I don't go all the way back, right? But as when you combine player and impactful recruit,
oh yeah,
he definitely takes home the number 40 award, because that was a huge recruit for Mack Brown, getting that thing kick-started when him and Chris Sims were in that number 1 ranked class of 1999. Corey Redding was the Gatorade National Defensive Player of the Year. Chris Sims was the Gatorade Offensive Player of the Year nationally. I'm not sure those two guys have signed with the same college since then. They probably have. I wouldn't know. I'm sure Nick Saban will be phoning in to tell us I'm wrong any second now. I'm sure he's listening. But I can't – definitely not at Texas. I'll say that.
Hey, here's one. Someone just mentioned Alan Lowry. This is amazing. Alan Lowry played DB one year and then moved over to quarterback, where he won a Cotton Bowl, led the early 70s Texas teams after James Street. Tremendous player, but he apparently wore 40 as a youngster and then moved to, I think, man, was he 16? Can't remember what number he was. Long story short, he spent the next 30 years in the NFL as a special teams coach. He was the guy that conducted the Music City Miracle. He was the special teams coach that had the throwback pass for the Tennessee Titans that ended up putting them in the Super Bowl eventually that year. So, hats off to Corey Redding and Alan Lowry, I guess.
There you go. But yeah, also tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking. Get your questions in. We're going to get to those here in just a little bit. But hey, let's start with recruiting. And Jerry, I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, I think we have a graphic coming up for this big pool party recruiting event Thursday. I wouldn't say big. Big because we put out, and I'm sure a lot of you guys saw the video, put out on ontexasfootball.com. We've been talking about the possibility, but Jonah Williams, I spoke with a family member of his on Saturday, and he, in fact, is going to be in Austin Thursday with family member, barring some late change. He was in Atlanta the last few days at Wooden Bat Tournament. I'm sure, Blake, you can tell us about that. That's not something you sign up for $250. This is a select invite. You're putting it on for the scouts type of scenario here. But Jonah Williams, there you see him playing safety, ball high, plays safety, wide receiver. He plays in the return game as well. I've kind of, and I'm going to continue to, I'm halfway dismissing the recruitment, not him as a prospect, but the recruitment, because Blake, I mean, his family member that I talked to Saturday said that day he hit 94 on the gun as a left-handed pitcher, but he's an outfielder left-handed pitcher. He threw 109 pitches that day and hit 90 on his 100th pitch.
That's
so,
insane.
I mean, for a guy that plays obviously outfield, can run like the wind, is 6'3", 205 pounds, you can tell people about that. So I'm halfway dismissive of and I have been, of the recruitment, because I think the chances are whoever wins out, and right now Oregon's the favorite. I mean, I know that'll shock people, but look, it'll look good on signing day. He's a hell of a prospect wherever he goes, but it's still probably less than 50-50 ever shows up. I mean, he with what's going on right now, the way he's ascending on the baseball diamond, people I don't think thought he was going to throw 90, hit 94, hit over 92, 93 consistently. Apparently he started really swinging it well late in that event in Atlanta too. It's great. He's a heck of a prospect. You can see on the video. He's a 4-star plus or 5-star, whatever you want to call him, prospect, depending on the rankings and how they finalize. And it's great that Texas, again, Steve Sarkisian, they don't walk away from guys they really like. Blake Gideon's done a good job keeping Texas in the game here. He'll be on campus Thursday. Bigger news for me is that Michael Terry will be on campus Thursday. I know Jonah Williams is kind of one of those hot button prospect topics, right? Because Jonah Williams, I get it. He was once picked to go to OU. Then the people had to change that. Then it was A&M. People had to change that. Now it's Oregon. So again, I know he's a hot button one, but Michael Terry being on campus, Bobby, is bigger to me because he's going to play college football. And he is just like Jonah Williams, one of the top athletes in the country. And he's a guy who's, by the way, this 40 Acres apparel shirt's pretty nice. If you want 40 acres, I mean, that if you're looking at that saying, whoa, yeah, it's a good one. Look, Michael Terry, is going to show up on a college football campus. And he's a guy that plays all over the place. You see a guy 6'2", 210 playing corner. He's not a corner. He wants to be an offensive player, but there's his ball skills. There's his catch radius. There's his ability to run. And if anybody watched that, said, wow, is that what Amari Niblack looked like in high school? Go back and watch Amari Niblack, very similar athlete. And there he is playing running back, which Oregon has tried to sell him on. He's not Derrick Henry, but he wants to be an offensive player. The question is, and I think this is what his recruitment comes down to. Similar to Cade Phillips, wants a chance to play corner. And if Cade Phillips, if that's not his best position, he's okay with moving to safety. Michael Terry wants a chance to play wide receiver. If it doesn't work out, okay, I'm a really good athlete. I know that, there's other positions for me to have success. I think it would be in Amari Niblack as a tight end that's a hellacious athlete in a tough matchup. But that's, I think, what it's coming down to. I think Texas say, hey, man, you want to you want to give it a shot at wide receiver? We'll let you give it a shot at wide receiver, but we're recruiting you as an athlete at the same time.
Here's what
Chris Jackson hasn't been involved in that recruitment.
Yeah. Here's what I would say to this about Michael Terry. Okay. And what I would say to all young guys. Okay. You have a choice. And I don't know what you're going to be good at, right? He may end up being a David Boston-like receiver, Jerry. Okay. Because that would be the bonus sized, bulky guy, right? That could really ball out. If you think you can be that, then go be that. If you think you can make it as a tight end, then you go be that. And the reason why is, look, do you want to be a 3-year player or a 4-year player or a 5-year player? Right? Because that's the ultimate. I mean, Michael Terry is an NFL type prospect.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that in my mind. So do you want to be a 3-year guy, 4-year guy? I mean, what is your goal? Because if you move around positions a little bit, that takes another year, most likely. Like Jatavian Sanders didn't mess around. Just went straight to tight end, didn't think about defensive end, et cetera. 3 years. Now, we can say whether or not Jatavian Sanders ever got strong enough, et cetera, and make that comment like he could have used another year of seasoning, essentially, right, Jerry, to get stronger. But that's what Michael Terry risks by kind of figuring out his position a little bit, or even a Cade Phillips, et cetera. They risk that one more year where if they go in and go at a certain position from the get-go, they have an additional chance. I want to say this, Rod Babers, by the way, that was the first time last night, Jerry, that he had watched Jonah Williams. He goes, I like this cat. He was good with that one. Hey, those are the two guys that's clearly recruiting. There's another one that is kind of interesting to me. He's a defensive lineman, Jerry. And we know the Longhorns need defensive linemen right now. And he is out of Rancho Santa Margarita Catholic, I think, out in California. But he's by way of Germany. And he's got offers from Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, et cetera. Tell folks about this guy that's coming to town this week.
Yeah, JJ Hahn, he moved to the States a couple of years ago. He's at Rancho Santa Margarita Catholic. He's from Berlin, Germany. He actually left. The reason he didn't make June official visits is he went back home to Germany, and he's back now. He's scheduled to be in Austin this week. We'll see what day that is for a day with somebody very close to him. But he's interesting because, look, he's a guy that he's not a highly ranked guy. I think he may be after a senior season. But when colleges got out in May and kind of watched him, people started offering him. 6'4", 275. He's an upside guy. But then he goes down. He makes an unofficial visit kind of rounds down the Southeast. He went to Alabama. They offered after seeing him in person. He went to Georgia, same. Florida, same. Went up to Ohio State. Went to hit a couple other schools as well. Went up to Ohio State. So he picked up a lot of offers in a short amount of time from mid-May through early June. Texas offered June 4th. It was Texas had actually already seen him in person. Pete Kwiatkowski's pretty well connected at that high school from former recruitments. So he stopped by there in May and saw Hahn in person at once work out. So Texas came through and offered him June 4th, or called and offered him. Kenny Baker and PK called and offered him June 4th. And when I talked to him that day, he said, I want to get to Texas. I don't think I'll make a decision until probably November, December. I can't take official visits. So I think unless there's a serious change of plans, his recruitment will play out a while because he hadn't taken an official visit anywhere. But he's one of those guys. I mean, look, an international kid who when I was part of ESPN Under Armour, we did a camp out in Cologne, Germany, in that area. It was actually really cool. Those kids love ball out there. There aren't many like JJ Hahn out there that then come to the States and play. But he's a very interesting prospect. He'll be on campus this week. And the 2026 list is growing that's coming in. It's not going to be a big list. It's because it's a Thursday. A lot of parents have to work, whatnot. Texas wasn't going for a January 20th junior day type of scenario. I think they wanted to get a few guys on campus. Now, important to note, Nick Townsend, recent commitment. He told me he's on campus. KJ Lacey will be there. Dia Bell will be back in Austin for the third time since March. He'll be back in campus with a family member Thursday. But then you have Jordan Clay, who him and the Robinson kid out of Mansfield at wide receiver stole the show at the Texas Elite Camp in June. Jordan Clay will be back. Chris Stewart obviously is committed to Texas from Shadow Creek. Jamarian Carlton, who earned a Texas offer out of Temple up the road, will be there. Jamarian Vincent, Waco Connolly, you're familiar with that one. That's Jelani McDonald, Kobe Black. Obviously, Trey Wisner went there until he moved to DeSoto his senior year. Shout out to Derek Wisner if you're on the chat. Nicholas Robertson, 3-star now, will be 4-star. I can guarantee that. He came to Texas camp in June with a cast still from a prior injury on his wrist and wanted the offer so bad. He came in and competed with a cast on. That really impressed Sark, Kyle Flood, and the staff. Mike Brown, obviously from a legacy sports school, sports sciences in the Houston area. He'll be on campus. His father, tremendous linebacker from Austin Reagan and at Texas A&M on NFL draft pick. Then Javian Osborne could be the number one running back on the board in state in 2026 from Forney announced he'll be on. So good group, solid group. It's not going to be a big 50, 75 person group. It's a Thursday. Parents have to work. That's not what Texas was shooting for. But Texas is going to get a number of guys on campus here. The last recruiting event before practice begins.
There you go. Good stuff. Lots of guys coming for sure.
So let me follow up real quick.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, Michael Terry's not going to be a wide receiver long term. I'm just going to stand on the hill right now on that one. Good player, and I think should be a prospect, but I don't see that long term. Somebody asked in the chat about, I want to get those questions before we move on. Jaden Greathouse and Michael Terry. The difference there is Jaden Greathouse is 6'1", 212, 215 now. Jaden Greathouse was really strong, developed physically coming out of high school. So he was 6'1", 200, 205 around there his senior year. Michael Terry's almost 6'3" and already 215, 218. I mean, so it's going to be hard to keep him under 230 pounds because he's a multiple sport guy who hasn't just been football focused, strength and conditioning focused. He plays multiple sports, ran 10.8 and 100 meters this year at 215, 210. So elite prospect. It's just going to be hard to keep the weight off him.
I would agree with that. It's and it's not a negative. People think that is a negative. And look, the guys we're sitting here saying he's an NFL athlete, so don't take this negatively. He would have to be, and he could be, Jerry. This is where you may get knocked off your hill. A David Boston, Josh Gordon type of guy, where he could be AJ Brown, the supersized type of receiver that still has that speed. Obviously, those are rare, very, very rare guys.
Yeah.
So that's why the questioning of it comes into play. Hey, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. We need to take some time to do that real quick for John Donovan. John is a certified financial planner who spent more than 30 years providing professional investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation. Just as the Longhorns are throwing their pool party this Thursday for football recruits, John and the Longhorn Wealth team want to throw you a free 90-minute wealth consultation to explore how Longhorn Wealth can help you and your family secure your own financial future. So to schedule your free private consultation, simply call the Longhorn Wealth team 972-707-4900 or schedule online at longhornwealth.net. That's John Donovan, 972-707-4900. Thanks, John, for your sponsorship of Coffee and Football.
All right, guys, one of the things that I wanted to bring up here, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, this comment from a Texas A&M offensive lineman, Trey Zune or Zun. I don't know how to say it properly, but he says he has a message for Texas at Texas A&M on November 30th. He says, bring everything you've got. You're not going to stand a chance. Curious to get y'all's thoughts on this.
One, I like that he said it. This is what's going to be fun, right? I don't want guys that get in front of the mic and say, we're looking forward to a good game. I mean, I don't want that. That's not what this is about. Torian York, he has the chip on his shoulder at Texas, didn't offer him. I think he's a tremendous linebacker at A&M, by the way, out of Temple High. I love that this is going to be the talk. This is what he should say. I mean, this is what the rivalry being back is all about. I love it. I welcome it. I think it's awesome. And I can't wait.
I saw that one and I thought, okay, fair enough. The Danny Stutzman quote, though, the linebacker for OU had this to say. I'm going to read this out loud. And he talked about he was talking about whether or not Quinn Ewers in his comment, like it's everybody's big game, that was taken out of context. Stutzman said, well, I mean, he's not wrong, talking about Ewers. When I go to bed, I think about Texas in that game. It is what it is. I know what that game means to myself and every single Sooner fan. I have a Longhorn tattooed on my body, like it means that much to me. You go to bed thinking about how big of a deal it is. You look at every single person in the state of Oklahoma, every single person in the state of Texas, and you know how much it means to them. Talk about a guy that embodies Sooner hate. Danny Stutzman is that guy, Jerry and Blake. So add those two comments together, one from A&M and one from OU, and you can recognize now what Texas is back to. Now that A&M's back, they have OU on the schedule, even Arkansas, Sam Pittman, and some of those guys made some comments as well. So get ready for a fun football season, I think is what that tells me. A lot of water cooler talk going to be going on. Hopefully the Longhorns come on the right side of that too.
Gosh, isn't this so much better than wondering what Matt Campbell's going to say at the Big 12 Media Days?
Or the offensive guard from Iowa State.
I mean, yeah. Hey, look, we're not even – you know what the best thing about the SEC move is? We're not even keeping up with Iowa State's team's betting issues anymore.
Oh, man. Good stuff. Well, hey, guys, recently y'all were over at SEC Media Days last week. Y'all were there the entire time. And I wanted to talk about the all-conference picks that came out here. And I'm going to put them up on the screen. And we'll start with first-team offense. Only one Longhorn in there in offense tackle, Kelvin Banks. Curious if y'all thought any other Texas players should have been on that first team.
Well, I mean, welcome to the SEC, right? I mean, this is all these guys are going to be high NFL draft picks. I mean, we're not in the Big 12 anymore. If you're a first team offense or defensive guy, people are pretty much saying, we think you're going to be a first or second round draft pick. So quarterback's tough because Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Brady Cook, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe. You could pick any of those five guys, first, second, third team, and you're probably not going to be totally crazy, right? So, I mean, there's five high-level quarterbacks in the SEC. Obviously, Georgia's the team that's picked to win the league, Carson Beck, the quarterback of that team, makes sense. Who's the second team guy? Quinn Ewers. Who's picked second? Texas. Makes sense. It wouldn't shock me if Jackson Dart didn't end up being the first team guy at the end of the year. It's just there's so much in play at that quarterback position. CJ Baxter being second team. Some people might disagree with that. I thought that was interesting. The funny thing about this is, and I think Trevor Etienne's a better NFL prospect than Montrell Johnson at Florida. But the funny thing when you look at these lists is Travis Etienne was actually the backup to Montrell Johnson. They both split time. But Montrell Johnson had more snaps on the field than Etienne, but Etienne's going to have a big season at Georgia. It's funny how that works out. Third team, Milroe, Justice Haynes. Watch out for him in that run game, that pin and pull run game of Kalen DeBoer. Those backs look really good to me in the spring there, him and Jamarion Miller. Ulysses Bentley's actually Ole Miss. But Deion Brooks is interesting to me at wide receiver. I think Nick Anderson's going to be the highest drafted wide receiver at Oklahoma. I'm not even sure it's going to be close. Georgia, obviously very well represented. Going first through third team, Bobby, 4 Georgia offensive linemen. They're going to be, I think that's going to be the best offensive line in the country this year, personally. Then there's Zun. There he is. There's our guy, third team, welcoming Texas. Jake Majors at third team. I thought that was great from him. Jaden Roberts out of North Shore, but transferred from Kansas, so not really a Texan. He moved in before his senior year, I believe. But look, this is welcome to the SEC. That's a bunch of NFL draft picks and a bunch of high draft picks in the future.
You want to know why, and Jerry, you were talking about Georgia and why they're ranked so highly and thought of so highly. You know how many first, second, or third team picks they have on offense? There's only 11 starting positions, by the way. 8 of their 11 starters on offense are projected to be first 3 team on offense. So a lot of respect for them. I think CJ Baxter, and this is just my opinion, CJ Baxter was voted as a second team all-conference guy right after Nick Saban came out and said he was as good as a guy they had seen. And I think Nick Saban carries weight in what he says with other writers and reporters, et cetera, and they voted on that a little bit. I want to add one thing that a lot of people missed. There's an all-purpose position in this. Jaden Blue was voted third team all-purpose, and I could definitely see that as well. Texas, I think, ended up with 4 on the 3 deep, or 5 on the 3 deep on offense, 6 if you count Bert Auburn. Bert Auburn, by the way, was considered the first team kicker on those all conference teams.
There you go. And then the other piece of news that I wanted to get to before we get to questions here is that Steve Sarkisian yesterday spoke to the THSCA, and I'm going to play you guys a clip here.
Panic in recruiting. I think history kind of shows we usually close pretty good as we get into the season, as we get into December, as we get closer to that. I do believe a lot of times in the summer right now, a lot of recruiting is kind of the hype machine, but you actually have to put the product on the field. You have to play. You have to perform. How do certain players in your program develop that they sold you on here just like him, but actually how does he play? And so we kind of believe in our process. We're definitely a relationship-based operation, and we don't forego those relationships when a young man commits to another school. And I'm sure just like kids that commit to us, they're not stopping talking to the guys that are committed to us either. So at the end of the day, I think we've got a pretty good process to what we do. And, I always say, I just want to make sure the kids that commit to us are committed to us for the right reasons, and that they're coming to the University of Texas for the right reasons. And I'm not saying that kids are committing to other schools for the wrong reasons, but sometimes those things bear themselves out. Kelvin Banks wasn't committed to us at this time when he decided to come, and he's a preseason All-American. Anthony Hill wasn't committed to us at this time, and he's a pretty good player for us. And so over time, we continue to build our relationships with the players in our program. And some of them decide to come and some of them don't. But at the end of the day, we assess our recruiting classes. Are we addressing the needs that on our roster? Are we building a team that we think can be better next year than it was this year? We're always trying to do those things. And do they fit us? Do they fit us from a character standpoint? Do they fit us from a cultural standpoint? And are they going to be somebody that comes onto our team and enhances our culture, or are they going to be an anchor that we have to keep yanking along? And so it's not always about the number of stars they have. It's about, do they fit what we're about? And so, again, to go back to my very first statement, I'm generally not one to panic in recruiting, especially in the middle of June and July. Let's talk in December and see where we land.
Josh
So there you go.
LoneStarLive.com.
Curious
Steve, as the
on your
particulars
thoughts
of
on what
how-
he had to say.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I want to go down to a starred question with that because it's a fun discussion. Because Odin Horns is great on recruiting stuff. He says, do we as Longhorn Nation fans accept that Sark is just not going to have a top 5 class in June or July versus other programs that are now? Texas hasn't in any of the classes been ranked top 5 in June or July that ended up signing top 5 classes. So I think I'm more of a wait and see what happens in December because the track record's there. And there was another comment there that you can't depend on flips in your recruiting classes. Well, if you go back to, I'm just going to go back to the 2023 recruiting class for Texas. Yeah, Arch Manning was in the class. Anthony Hill was a flip, obviously. Jelani McDonough ended up being highly rated, wasn't in the class. Cecilia Kana, not in the class. So you just go DeAndre Moore, flip from Louisville, late, not in the class. Colton Vosick was committed to Oklahoma, not in the class. I mean, I can keep going if people want me to. I can go to the next class. I can go to the next class. I can do them all. I don't think we have time for that. My point here is that, look, recruiting isn't over in June and July. I've said all along, and I'll continue to say it, Texas is going to have another probably top 5 level class if they sign 24, 25 guys. That's just where Texas is at right now. Now they got to go have a good season on the field. That's always the case for all these schools, right? You got to go get it done on the field too to continue your ascension. But they're going to have. My question's not, are they going to sign a really good class? My question is, are they going to meet all their needs? That's the question I have. I think there's a couple of positions out there for Texas that we're going to have to see. It's going to have to be proven in season. Or the great thing about a blue blood, and I think why these coaches don't panic, and I don't think they panic, I just think Sark used that term, is if you're a blue blood nowadays in college football, these guys are like, oh, man, we missed on that guy. That stinks, but all right, we're going to go to the portal to fill our needs. And that's the great thing about being a blue blood is you can just, or a top level program, is if you evaluate the portal well, you can just go get an NFL prospect out of it. Now, I think there's certain things with development that come into play there. You don't want to be dependent on that at certain positions year after year after year. And I don't think the Texas staff does either. But there's so many pieces to the puzzle now, more so than there were 6-7 years ago, Bobby.
Jerry, I look at it this way a little bit differently. They're at 15 right now. You can't rely on flips if you're at 5 commitments right now. But really, you're only trying to get to 23, 24, 25, and you're at 15.
And you're going to be at 19 or 20 by when the ball.
And that's what I was going to say. Then you're looking at Jamie French, Kalik Lockett, Michael Terry, Nick Brooks. Those guys, whether they're considered leans to Texas or not, I kind of do. That takes you to 19. Then you're looking at, you still got guys out there, Nathan Tillman, DJ Sanders, Aiden Anning, Mad Faramo. You've got guys out there, and then you're circling back on some defensive linemen. You bring it in, Jay. I mean, the point being, Sark is right. If he were at 10 commitments right now, it would be different because you're trying to get to a higher number. Yep. But at 15, and you're going to be at 17, 18, 19 before the start of the season, there's definitely no reason to panic, not when you're getting the quality of player that he wants. If you weren't getting the real panicky time for me in recruiting, always, whether it's at the very end or in the middle, is if you're taking players that aren't quality players at any time in the process. And Texas is not doing that.
Yeah,
and they're getting players they want that were first on their list, etc. So that's no worry there in my estimation. I would add Jerry, that when you're talking about the positional needs right now of Texas, the two that everybody is concerned about, defensive linemen, because Texas has currently 0 defensive tackles committed. They have 1 cornerback and Caleb Chester committed. Those are the 2 positions. It's not like it's widespread. And so I think Sark also can focus on those positions by doing all of this and having that time this season.
All right, Jerry.
Hey, I will say this.
Go ahead.
This is something else Sark said in there that everybody glossed over. People will continue to recruit our players too. So if Texas is at 15 and they get to 19, don't be surprised when 1 or 2 peel off. Just don't be surprised by it, because it could it's very likely to happen. It happens every year. So it's not a one-way street there. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to be a downer. It's just that's reality in recruiting.
That's where it comes into, you got to go have another good season on the field. If you fall off this year, then what are the people going to do? That the other programs that recruited those kids, they're going to come in hard on them if they have a couple of spots left. So to that point, hey Blake, I don't know if you can pull up later. I know I got to tell people about this great product in a second. And no, it's not the 5.0 this week. But after that, bring up the SEC all defensive teams. We didn't get to that. We did offensive. We didn't do the defensive teams graphic.
Okay, let me see if I can find that. And in the meantime, tell folks about Gooder.
Yeah, look, guys, here's the deal. I'm threatening you with a good time today. Got my Gooders on, got my 40 Acres apparel on. Why Gooder? Why, you say? I took these things to the ocean in Florida. They survived. I don't know if I did, but they did. Stylish sunnies starting at only $25 a pair. No slip, no bounce, all polarized, all fun. 1-year warranty, 30-day free returns. Blake wears them to watch Colt hit that baseball. We know he does. We've seen pictures of it. Here's the new product launch, the Retro G. And that's not me. That's the glasses. Check them out here. New vintage-inspired shades. As always, these won't slip or bounce. The Retro Gs are available in 4 colors. Our favorite name of the bunch is Threaten Me with a Good Time. That's my favorite name of these. If you want to support the show and try a pair, Gooder is giving On Texas Football listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com, On Texas, all caps as always, and use code On Texas, all caps, for free shipping. Gooder offers a 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Again, that's gooder.com/On Texas, all caps. Use code On Texas. And here's my thing. If you're wondering if you should get a pair of Gooders or not, Blake Monroe's was worn Gooders all summer, and his son's hitting about 400. So Gooders work.
That's right.
Is Colt hitting 400? Is he hitting 400?
No, I don't think he's hitting quite 400. He got in a slump for a little bit. He's doing a little bit better now.
Dad's putting too much pressure on him. Hey, Colt, come super chat us and tell us about all the pressure you're under.
I think he's still asleep, to be honest. So no workouts today. It's a vacation day. So I think he's still sleeping there, guys. And we're going to get to that defensive all-conference stuff here in just a moment. I'm waiting on Matt here. So in the meantime, I'm going to ask you all a couple of questions. We do have some good ones and plenty of time to get your questions in. But let's take this one from Woodcrest. Do you guys think that Sark will give Kirby's defense problems the same way he did Saban's?
Saban talked about that. It called it squeeze splits.
Yeah.
How the splits of the receivers are a little bit different for Sark than other places, and that can cause a big issue for him from a pattern matching perspective in the secondary. And Saban just came out and said, Kirby does the same thing we did, and it gave us problems. I'm sure it's going to give him problems. That being said, talent has a way of overcoming things. Let's just put it that way. If Georgia's talent is good enough, it's not going to matter that much. However, I think Sark is a tremendous offensive coach, and he will find a way to score against a Georgia team that may not have the same level of players that they had a year or two ago. The question will, in that game, will be whether or not Texas can stop Georgia effectively. The game that actually probably is expected to have, or the team that is expected to have the best defense that Texas plays, is up in Ann Arbor against Michigan. So that defense should be one, or could be one, that gives Sark some trouble, in my opinion.
So from a personnel perspective with Georgia, something that I think will be interesting. We're ways off, but we're going to have fun talking about all this. Thank goodness we're not talking about Kansas football right now. Not that the guy, the coach isn't doing a great job up there. But look, they are defensive front wise. They are not as good as they were on those national championship teams. For Kirby's first national title team, that defensive line was straight monsters. I mean, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Trayvon Walker, all first-round picks, right? They don't have that. Nazir Stackhouse, first-team All-SEC defensive pick by the media, but he's more of a mid-round pick. He's not necessarily the dominator, penetrator, playing in your backfield the whole game type of guy. Michael Williams, first-team All-SEC defensive pick by the media. They list him at linebacker, 6'5", 265, any linebacker I've ever seen. He's more of a five-tech type of guy. But look, he still hasn't sacked the quarterback a lot in his career. He has not been a disruptive upfield force, changing down and distance a lot. They have good players up front. It's Georgia. They've recruited top 3 classes for 7 years in a row now, essentially. They have NFL players. They have good players. But they just can't solely straight up play in your backfield the entire game if you have a competent offensive line. And I said that to kind of get to this point. They have a kid at inside linebacker, backup inside linebacker named Jalen Walker, who's a highly ranked kid out of North Carolina. He is their best pass rusher. It's not even close. So will they start moving a guy like that outside? What are they going to do with him schematically against Texas? Because Georgia's going to have to bring heat from more. They're not just going to go dominate you up front. If they do, Texas offensive line had a really bad game and isn't as good as we thought they were. But their linebackers are high-level athletes right now. Smell Mondens of the world, Jalen Walkers. They have guys who can absolutely get to the quarterback in the blink of an eye. So how they're going to scheme it up and the timing of what Sark does against them is going to be so key there. Hunting his matchups, getting the ball out of Quinn's hand quick at times. I wonder in that game as we get closer to it, we got to see both teams play this season because Georgia's got to have a corner come through just like Texas does. I mean, they have really good players, but it's a little unproven at one spot, and a safety next to Malachi Starks maybe a little unproven, by the way. So they've just got to go do it on the field like anybody else. But it's going to be interesting to see what these teams look like by the time they play. But Georgia pressure in what they're able to do, I don't think is going to come as much from the defensive front as some past teams. It's going to come from the linebackers.
Okay, guys.
Hey, let's go to this one. And this is a good one, in my opinion. And the reason why is it talks to what else is going on at Texas over the next month and a half. Okay. Longhorns, is Thursday's pool party the last recruiting event of the summer? It is the last major event. Major, I put in quotations. Some of those guys will stay Friday into Saturday, though, okay, over this weekend. So think about it that way. But here's the reality of life for these football players. Texas starts practice a week from Wednesday. Sark's not going to have a bunch of recruits in then. Now, he may have recruit or 2 or 3 or 4 in over a Saturday for a Saturday scrimmage, right? But it's not going to be a major recruiting event for 2 reasons. It's not only the player, the fact that he's getting ready for the football season and the Longhorns are, those players are. They've got their own season coming up, and they'll have Saturday practices too, Jerry. I mean, you know that. I mean, think Reggie Sample's going to let somebody from Duncanville come down a week before the season? There's no chance. And so, there may be a guy or 2 that comes in from, say, the tight end from Pflugerville that Texas really likes in the 2026 class, Javion Martin. But there's not going to be another quote-unquote event planned. This will be the last one. There will be events taking place like announcements, but that's not on campus. That's not bringing guys to the University of Texas.
Correct. I have nothing else to add to that. Well stated. And I think you will see some kids trickle through for a practice, like Bobby said, but not many.
What about that one, Jerry? Roger G just asked, will there be any surprise visitors for the pool party, in your opinion?
It's always possible. We'll keep checking in the next couple of days, but I don't think it's look, right now, Jamie French scheduled to be at Georgia, okay, this weekend. Khalil Lockett, as of yesterday, wasn't thought he was coming in. Khalil Lockett's set his date for August 7th. I mean, a late visit there, I don't think is doing anything in his recruitment at this point. So, maybe we'll see. I will say no 2026 guys consider a surprise visitor, right? It would be somebody 2025 in the mix, or somebody Texas really still trying to stick in there with that shows up either Thursday or Friday or one of the weekend days. We'll see.
And it looks like we have those graphics ready here. So I am going to jump over to those, and we're going to talk about the first team all-conference picks for defense. And Jerry, I'm going to let you take it away like you did for offense.
Okay, so this is really when you're not in the Big 12 anymore. James Pierce, top 10 pick. Walter Nolan be a first-rounder if he maximizes his talent, which he hasn't done yet. Deone Walker, best-looking guy physically. Bobby and I saw at SEC Media Days. He'll be a first-round pick unless he does something crazy.
Top 5 pick, Jerry. Top 5.
Yeah, potentially. And does something crazy. And no, we're not going to mention Javian Toviano on here. Nazir Stackhouse, more of a mid-round pick, more than likely. Harold Perkins, his season, with that athleticism, who knows with him. Danny Stutzman, I think if NFL draft pick. Deontay Lawson, high NFL draft pick. Mikael Williams is going to be more of a 5-tech in the pros probably, or an edge player. But he'll be a first-round pick if he puts any production on the field this year. Billy Bowman, size-wise, I don't know. Malachi Stark should be a first-rounder. Malachi Moore will be a draft pick. Maxwell Hairston, probably most underappreciated defensive back in the SEC. This is all draft picks here. So go back.
Not a single Longhorn, though, Jerry.
Not a single Longhorn, but go to second team. Then we'll say hello. So there's Shamar Turner, DeSoto, former teammate of Byron Murphy. Landon Jackson, obviously LSU transfer to Arkansas, the older brother of Lance Jackson, who Landon, we talked to Bobby and I talked to him about the story about how Lance kind of ended up being high on the University of Texas. It was through Landon's recruitment. Nick Skyerton, obviously from Bryan High, transferred in from Purdue, should be a first-rounder. Tim Smith, I covered him in high school, and I lived in Florida doing local games on TV. That dude's a monster physically. Jared Ivey, really smart kid that talked at the SEC Media Days. One of the 3 guys that impressed me most. There's Anthony Hill Jr., second teamer. He could be a second teamer, Bobby, that could work his way to first team with a great season on the field. We'll see on that Smell Mondon. You'll learn about him if you don't know him in a few weeks. Jade Barron, Makuba, Manny Muhammad, all situated around Major Burns, who with that name, you better be a good defensive back because people will make fun of you the rest of your playing career. So that's 3 Texas guys in secondary, and Anthony Hill, 4 guys on second team.
Now let's look at third team.
Third
Trey
team
Moore comes in here, Jerry.
Yeah.
And I think you see his picture on the screen there if you're watching via YouTube. He is interesting because I really think of him more. If you're going to make Mikel Williams a linebacker, how do you not make Trey Moore a linebacker?
Right.
Mike, anyways, but that's beside the point. Long story short, Alabama has several players here on defense, 3 on the third team, or 4 on the third team as well. All in all, though, what I took away from this is to your very first point, Jerry, and that's that we're not in the Big 12 anymore.
No.
When I talked to Jim Nagy over the weekend or last week, he was talking about when he was with the Seahawks, okay? And in one of the drafts that he was at, okay, the entire Big 12 conference had 6 defensive players at the combine. 6. The entire Big 12.
Yep. He
said Georgia, Alabama, and LSU all had more at the combine.
Individually.
Individually. Those 3 teams had more. while I think that there's some great offensive players in this conference, Carson Beck, Luther Burden, the receiver out of Missouri, Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, the tackles out of LSU and Texas, respectively. It's really the defensive side of the ball that people like Jim Nagy, who's the Senior Bowl executive director now, see as a different type of caliber athlete and product. And so it's interesting. I also wonder if those 3 Texas DBs somehow split up the vote a little bit and didn't make one of them didn't make a first team because the other ones are splitting where they thought people might be ranked, et cetera. Interesting, though, that Andrew Makuba, without ever playing a snap at Texas, and Trey Moore are second and third team.
The crazy thing is we'd have to go back and count that list, but how many of those guys on defense were portal transfers? There was a lot that I went through on those 3 teams that were portal guys. Not as many on offense, more on defense that came out of the portal, which might be something we keep track of in the future as well. So people always ask us to call our shots, so I love it when people call their shots, right? Because it can't just be us calling our shots. John Sibley Butler here, I love it. Harold Perkins is the real deal. I think he's an LSU fan. He's been going after Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss on this, which is kind of funny. Nussmeier Jr. might win the Heisman at quarterback. I'm going to circle that one if you're right, man. That would be a hell of a call.
Nussmeier is good. I think he's a good player. Mr. Butler is a guy that I think I've known for a long, long time, or known of for a long, long time. But has been at Texas for a long time as well. Hey, I want to say thank you to Babbel. Babbel is also sponsoring today. The best way to learn a language is immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if it's not in the cards for you, like me, it's not for me, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. 1 in 5 Americans have a new language on their bucket list, learning a new language. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list. Fast forward to the end of 2024. Think of your goals right now. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. I have, and I'm actually now I think I'm 40 days into it, and I am speaking Spanish a little bit better, or actually a lot better than when I started. I knew a little Spanglish, to be honest with you, but now I'm getting into it a little bit more. I'm doing one lesson in the morning for 5 minutes and one in the evening for 5 minutes. So I'm actually speaking a little Spanish before I come in and talk to you guys each and every Monday through Friday here on Coffee and Football. Be a better you in 2024 with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. If you want to take that next step, here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, you can get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at Babbel.com/OnTexas. Get up to 60% off at Babbel.com/OnTexas, spelled Babbel, BABBEL.com/OnTexas. Rules and restrictions may apply. We appreciate them and their sponsorship. This is one of those things that I think everybody, it's hard to learn a new language. You need help, especially if you're my age. Good stuff from Babbel.
A couple of things I want to hit on, Blake, real quick.
Go ahead.
Is Fasusi coming to a pool party? I don't believe he is, but we'll double check again. As of the weekend, he was not. He told me that, and then somebody else told me that. I think he has a conflict that day. Obviously, a lot of that also depends on if a parent can come down in their work schedule. LL, whatever happened to Jacoby Matthews, the former 5-star safety out of Louisiana that signed with A&M, then transferred out? I believe he's at a junior college, I believe in Mississippi. I may be wrong on the JUCO, but I believe he has a junior college in Mississippi because he couldn't transfer SEC to SEC. So I think he went the JUCO route, and we'll see where he resurfaces after the season. But if he has a really big year and can work towards maximizing his talent, it'd be interesting to see on him what happens with him. By the way, here's another one that I was going to bring up because I thought this was good. Jose Rodriguez. If you had one flip option for 2025, Bobby, I'll ask this one for you too. Who would it be? Mine's Josiah Sharma because I just think the guy's a stud.
DeCorian Moore. I'd still pick DeCorian Moore or Devin Sanchez.
Devin Sanchez isn't a bad one either.
Yeah.
And you guys know I love DeCorian Moore. I think that's done, so I'm not even considering that one. But to Bobby's point, I mean, he's a super freak.
Yeah.
The talent doesn't change if he doesn't go to Texas. He's a super freak.
Yeah, I could easily see us waking up in 3 years in DeCorian Moore and Devin Sanchez being top 5 picks.
Yeah.
So that's why I say that.
Hey, Blake, I want you to address this one because Jonah Williams is a big topic now that he's visiting Thursday with a couple of family members. Is Jonah Williams a possible MLB draft pick? Is that a concern for Texas, or is he for sure going to play college football and baseball? I'll add mine after you on that, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, as Jerry said at the beginning of the show, 94 miles an hour is what he hit the other day, and then was still throwing in the 90s as he got over 100 pitches. Yeah, I don't think it's a possible draft pick. Is Jonah Williams a draft pick? And the answer is yes. When it comes,
the question is he going to be a first rounder, sandwich picker, second rounder, or third rounder? I mean, that's where we're headed with this kid at this point, I would say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, you've seen somewhere where he's ranked like the top outfielder in the next year's draft, right out of high school.
Yeah, the top high school outfielder for sure in next year's draft, as you said.
So again, that's why I'm not dismissive of his talent. Just for anybody that watches this as a Galveston Ball fan or anything, I'm not dismissive of his talent. I'm more dismissive in a way that he'll ever be on a college football field. And my question with Jonah Williams is a football prospect. If we just talk about that, I think he's a tremendous talent. Watch him in football, watch him on the basketball court this year. I was at the game when they played Friendswood when Dan Lanning was there the entire game in the stands with the family. Yes, I can say that, right? Because you can do the school visit. I think that counts as a school visit. But look, is he a safety long term? I don't know. I think colleges are really mixed on that. Is he one of the top athlete prospects in the country? Absolutely. Then you get into if he ever showed up and played college football, is his focus 100% on football? Probably not. So then you have to balance that. What are the chances that you effectively pull that off? If you wouldn't be an early enrollee like other kids, you're staying your senior year in high school for baseball and then to see what happens in the draft. Do you come in for the first summer session if you're going to be a high draft pick or not, wherever you sign? You probably do from a leverage play before the draft. So you play it all out through your agent and everything. But then if it just so happened you passed up the MLB draft, say you fell to the 5th, 6th round and it didn't work out and your NIL was about the same and you wanted to go play college football and baseball. I mean, if you're at a power program and you're not singularly sport focused, you have to be hellacious, hell on wheels to get it done these days.
Hey, Jerry, so Ricky Williams did it for a little while at Texas, right?
They gave it up at the end.
Yeah, he's won the Heisman Trophy and led NCAA. But here are some thoughts. I was just trying to do a sidebar on this a little bit, Jerry. Great football players or good football players that you saw in high school that ended up being tremendous baseball players. The one for Texas that comes immediately off the board is Adam Dunn, right? At a New Caney. Good all-around player. I thought he was going to end up being a tight end at Texas. He didn't like getting moved from quarterback. So be it. He ended up going pro in baseball, having a great career, what I would consider a great career, even though he struck out a lot. But probably the best one I saw in my days that was an elite high school player that I thought was going to be the next quarterback at Nebraska. Like I literally thought he was the next dude for them is Carl Crawford.
Yeah.
He was out of Houston, Jeff Davis High School, and he ran the option in high school, and he was hellacious. He of course had a long time. Is he still in the major league?
No, I think he's retired now. Rod Babers played against him in high school and brought him up the other day on the chat as well.
Oh, did he really? Yeah. I mean, Carl Crawford could go now. That was one. And I saw something the other day. This is going to be interesting for people that follow like the multi-sport things. Do you know who Devontae Adams' high school teammate was? The receiver for the Raiders. That's maybe one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL right now.
I do
His
not.
high school teammate, Blake, and you'll like this, Jock Peterson,
Oh,
the baseball outfielder for the Dodgers, now the Diamondbacks. They were 1-2 at receiver at Palo Alto High in California.
wow.
So that's just crazy to me how that kind of intertwined.
Yeah. So the name of the guy that was most effective recently, college football, baseball, pro baseball, was Kyler Murray.
Oh,
But he's a total super freak. Now, he's still, to this day, the only guy to be drafted in the top 10 overall in MLB and NFL. So you almost have to throw him out. And he also went to OU when Baker Mayfield was there. So he wasn't going to start that first year. So he could focus dually on football, baseball. What happened the year he started? What happened? He walked away from baseball. He was actually drafted by the A's, had to pay the money back, some of the money back, when he went more football focused.
Jack Lala mentions Keith Moreland, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders. Frank Thomas was a good football player, but gave it up for baseball as well.
The question, and those are super freaks, right? Kyler Murray, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders. I mean, those are legitimate, some of your best athletes ever, right? And Kyler is one of the best athletes ever. You don't get drafted in the top 10 in 2 sports and not be, right? Even though you're maybe not as tall as some other guys. That's a freaky level of athleticism. No matter if you want to give an Oklahoma Sooner or A&M guy credit or not, you got to give him credit. But what's interesting today, I think the other part today, Bobby, is it more because football's more year-round now than it was. Okay, you're there year-round. You're training with Torrey Beckton year-round. You also have NIL responsibilities through football outside of the normal day's activities. So football is so year-round for these guys, and that's just not even on the field and in the film room. It goes beyond that in the NIL world now. You wonder from a time perspective if you can legitimately pull it off, because Kyler Murray was pre-NIL era too. My bet is that where he was ranked as a high school quarterback and what would have been available to him NIL-wise, he would have given up baseball out of high school because he loved football. So that's what's interesting to me, is that NIL component and the time component, how much it's changed, even in recent years, what's actually in front of a kid trying to pull that off effectively.
One player that was drafted in 3 different sports.
Yep.
Dave Winfield. Dave Winfield, baseball player, basketball player at University of Minnesota, never even played a game of football at the University of Minnesota. The Minnesota Vikings still drafted him late in the NFL draft.
Yeah, so I think he got drafted in 4 sports, right? Pro sports. Didn't hockey draft?
What was the other sport? Hockey?
Yeah, hockey.
That's crazy.
I think he's the only guy to ever be drafted in 4, and he's definitely the only guy to be drafted in 4 and hit a pigeon in mid-flight from right field at Yankee Stadium. That's a record that'll never be broken.
Oh, hey, let's go to this question here from UT Tyler guy. Player you would take on this team over the 05-09 teams. Who are the tackles on? There's a lot on the 09 team.
Justin Blaylock at right tackle, 05.
Yeah, you're not going to take left tackle was Jonathan Scott. It would be hard for me, even with Kelvin Banks.
Right.
You're not going to displace Jonathan. I know you probably would take Kelvin, I guess.
Thin line.
09, you might take the entire offensive line. With the exception, was Tony Hill still there that time?
So bring the question back up. What was it?
Yeah. Players you would take on this team over the 2005 and 2009 teams.
So the crazy thing about 05, if you're listening, Quan, I'm Jordan Shipley. Jordan was out with an knee injury. The wide receivers on that team, I think a lot of guys on Texas, would have been over that. And here's the crazy thing. I don't think as good as Amari Niblack is and Gunnar Helmuth as a combo, David Thomas was a tremendous player, right?
Yes. You're not, it's like Jonathan Scott. You're not pushing them out.
I mean, obviously people are bringing up Anthony Hill. Totally agree with that. Anthony Hill would have been one. Manny Muhammad, very good. Probably 09, but not 05. That was 4 first-rounders and a third-rounder in the secondary there. That would be my guys. I'm trying to think on this team.
O-line. It's O-line, Jerry, in the 09. There's a lot on 09, to your point. And you're right. The wide receivers in 05 were Cosby and Swede, along with Brian Carter and Billy Pittman. Those were the 4 primaries. 2 of those guys didn't play in the NFL at all, and Brian Carter and Billy Pittman. Cosby did and was a heartbeat of that team to some degree, I think. He added the thing that people don't remember about Quan is he was a baseball player and went and played baseball first. And so he was a little older and provided a little, say this the right way, even though he was a freshman at that time at Texas in 05, he provided a little older maturity among the team. And so I'd have a hard time there. Lima Swede was a draft pick, but I don't know that he was as talented per se as some of these other guys. We'll see.
I would take the backup quarterback over those teams' backup quarterback. Does that count?
Say that again.
I would take this year's backup quarterback over those teams' backup quarterback, if that makes a difference.
Yeah. No, it doesn't, but I wish.
By the way, David Williams asked the question, or I answered this. I had to do research, but I had some doubts on hockey. But Dave Winfield was drafted in 3 sports, but by 4 leagues, the 4th being the ABA. So, yeah, he was drafted in 4 professional leagues, which is crazy. That is crazy. There are some records that will never be broken. That is one of the few.
One of my favorite baseball players of all time is Tony Gwynn. He's now deceased, I guess, but he was also drafted in basketball out of San Diego State. Just a tremendous. I don't know if there's some thoughts up there about who has the best hand-eye coordination of all time, and I'm putting him up there with Ted Williams. I never saw Ted Williams, but just from what people said, but bat to ball skills, Tony Gwynn's still the best I've ever seen in my life. Just amazing.
I don't watch enough Olympic ping pong to get into the hand-eye. But if you just watch videos on YouTube, man, that's crazy stuff.
All right, Antoine wants to know, how soon does Texas look to assemble pieces for Dia Bell in the 2026 class?
It's a good question.
Jerry, they already started a little bit with Chris Stewart, right? The wide receiver. And maybe this week is the start of that, or the beginning of it, really, when they have Dia Bell back in. You think this Thursday they might have some of those conversations?
Yeah, I think, but just kind of go back to what Sark said in the press conference. He's not in a rush. Could Jordan Clay, who I would pick Texas for right now, for him, when will he make a decision? The kid Zion Robinson out of Mansfield, who blew the doors off at the Texas Elite Camp, is he ready to make an early? This is somebody's asking about Jermichael Finley's son. Texas likes him a lot at wide receiver. Are they really going to push to get other guys in the boat right now, having Chris Stewart already committed? We'll see. I could see him taking one more guy early. I'm not sure they're going to try to fill up a class of 3 or 4 wide receivers before these kids play a game their junior season. That's just not Sark's MO.
I
means bait on at least one guy.
Jerry, I loved Sark's answer to the July early signing period. He was against it. So, look, I want to see these kids play as a senior. You're taking away the fact that these guys might not even have a chance to show what they're worth as a senior. You're taking out a year of development for them because they've already hit the peak of what they're going to do. They want to sign with a college. And if you put that carrot before their senior season, what are they really working for as seniors? And so you're relying on them to have a lot of self-motivation. And so Sark was talking about that yesterday at the Texas High School Coaches Association. We have that interview, by the way, or that discussion on Texas football, if you check it out from yesterday. But my point on that, Jerry, is that's something that you and I have discussed. You've been in favor of the summer signing period. I've been in that category where I want them to wait and earn it. I think Sark's more in that December signing period favorite right now. He does like, but Jerry, he did also like the fact that they pushed the high school group up a couple of weeks and waited for the portal a couple of weeks after. He was really in favor of that because it gave clear delineation or demarcation between the two classes. He wants the high school guys to get their day in the sun, et cetera. Then they can go on to the portal and go from there.
All right, before we move on to the last few questions, Bobby, why don't you tell folks out there about Longhorn Wealth Management Group?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to our sponsor, John Donovan, and president of Longhorn Wealth Management. As a proud UT alum, John has served for 15 years as a Dallas, Texas Ex's board member and is now helping lead the build out of the Collin County, Texas Ex's chapter. It is John's Longhorn pride that led him to brand his own firm, Longhorn Wealth, and dedicate his firm to serving his fellow UT alums and all UT employees. John and the Longhorn Wealth team want to throw you a free 15-minute wealth consultation to explore how Longhorn Wealth can help you and your family secure your own financial future. So to schedule your free private consultation, simply call the Longhorn Wealth team 972-707-4900 or go online at longhornwealth.net. That's 972-707-4900 or longhornwealth.net. Hook 'em from John Donovan, president, Longhorn Wealth Management Group.
Blake, you answered this, but I want to know. Somebody asked this, and I want to get where you found it. Is Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine in stores yet? I was going to bring that up because I was in Kroger in the Houston area Saturday, and they didn't have it in there. Did you find one already, or anybody who's found them? Let me know where you found them because I'm on the hunt.
You're muted, Blake.
Mine actually came before it hit the newsstands, but I have seen them in Barnes & Nobles and Walmart. Both
there you
places.
go.
I would also say this. I talked to Phil Steele the other day, and his are only available in Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. If you get that going, just so you know that. So not only is Dave Campbell's in those places, but I think there's some kind of deal going on right now with magazines and different grocery store chains that they don't want to, they aren't being compensated the way they want to be, essentially. So they're staying away from certain chains.
Scott Knutson has one I want to get to. Jerry, can you tell followers, fans what your fall activities consist of? Do you attend prep games on Fridays, Saturdays, see kids in action? Yeah, so it changes. It's changed over the years. I used to be more of a Friday night high school football game guy, and I still go. But I really like the practice settings more these days. I like to go out during the week. I'll go to games on Fridays, yes. But I used to really put more time into the actual Friday, Saturday games. But obviously, the jobs change nowadays. Now we have college football. When I was just doing recruiting stuff, I could do whatever from a recruiting perspective. But we have more going on than that now. But I love – the crazy thing about it, I love the practice settings so much now, and the games have value, don't get me wrong, but I can go watch the game on Huddle too. But, I'll never forget, we did a live stream. Bobby and I did a show when I was at Edgewater High School, and this is just one example of many, where I was there and Cedric Baxter just had a minor hamstring injury, which they set him out. He could have played like late. They set him out like 5 games. They could have set him out 2, but they knew they were going to go undefeated and wanted him to be 100% for the playoffs. But, look, he was number 1 or 2 ranked running back in the high school in the country at the time. And he was, a lot of times those guys aren't, if they're injured, they're off to the side, hanging out, doing whatever on their phone. He was in the practice. The entire 2-hour practice, he was there. He was in the huddle every play. He was talking to the quarterback. He was talking to the running back. He wasn't just standing there. He was actually engaged in the practice, even though he was physically not able to practice that day, or they shut him down. They wouldn't let him practice that day. And Bobby, I remember our conversations from that, and my takeaway was, dude, that was really impressive. That is a guy that gets it. He's mature. He has a level of intelligence about him. And so when he came in, what that showed us, and I reference this all the time, when he came in and made such a quick, strong impression on Steve Sarkisian, Tashard Choice, Kyle Flood, the offensive staff, what have you, it was his maturity level. It was his maturity level. That you saw it that day you were there at practice, and that this guy is much more mature than a lot of guys. And that's not a negative on kids who aren't. People develop at different times, but he was extremely mature at a young age in that regard. I haven't seen that a lot where guys engage for 2 straight hours in the huddle every single play. Literally head in the huddle, break huddle, take step back, stands next to coach, goes back to, play after play after play. And so that showed you that this guy had it up here. And
it here.
Yep. And so that's proven out immediately. And so why I love going to practices a lot of times now is, you pretty much know at this point how good the guys are. There's so much out there, whether it's the huddle tape, the Under Armour camps, which I used to be part of, track and field. I love track. By the way, I love track to go watch kids because they're all there. They're not on a football field. It's not a football setting. You have to be highly competitive to get out there in track and field. Highly competitive. It's either that or you just love the run, right? But I remember this spring, I was at a track meet to go see Zion Williams, Ryan Frogie, who's committed to OU, the offensive lineman from Bridgeland. There was a track meet at Humboldt ISD, and Zion was throwing the shot put, and being that he's in Lufkin and he was in Houston, I went to watch it. And I knew Port Arthur Memorial. There's some really good teams there. Fort Bend Marshall, who had almost broke the national 4x1 before that. That was a year ago, actually. But there was a lot of good track teams, PA Memorial, a lot of the Killeen teams, which you don't get to see those kids as much in person. But I saw Nick Townsend, and I was like, I'm running the 100. I'm running the 4x100. And I was like, 225 pounds. Then a few weeks later, he runs 10.92 in the 100 meters at 226 pounds. So I like that. But to answer your question, very long-winded. I love the high school games are fun. It's a great environment. I love part of the job. I love practices more now than games. But I'll be at a lot of them.
I would say this too. Thursday night games are easy to get to.
Yeah.
And so you also have Thursday night games. You know what you can tell in practice that you can't necessarily tell in games, and you just hit on it, is what you have on the inside. Do you really care?
Yep.
Not only about yourself and how hard you work, but about your team. What you described there with Cedric Baxter was caring about his team, right? I used to go to practice all the time, and you could tell really easily if a kid cared about themselves and cared about the team when they got out to practice. Look, I've seen some NFL players loaf in practice.
That's 100%.
So it's not the singular defining thing, but it is meaningful. And let's talk about Tavondre Sweat. Okay. Freaky athlete for his size, right? Jerry played high school basketball. Was not necessarily a great practice player.
No.
Okay, but he ends up in the NFL because of his athleticism. But guess what? It took Tavondre 5 years to get there. After, changing his attitude, changing all those things. He always had that athleticism. The athleticism wasn't developed. The mindset was. And you can tell in practice what mindset kids have at an early age.
Yeah.
You really can. And so
I want to tell you another one that was so interesting to me of recent that mattered. 6:30 a.m. practice. And I saw Arch Manning 2 or 3 times. This was a 6:30 a.m. practice at Isidore Newman the night after Cedric Baxter committed in Orlando. He sprinted between every drill. not jogged, sprinted. And it's interesting when you think about that now. Bobby, what did we see what he did when he got off the bus his first spring practice?
Yeah, everything's on the hop with him.
He sprinted onto the field. So some people that had never seen him before say, oh, that could just be an act. He's just trying to impress. Not if you went and saw him in high school. That's exactly what he did. He sprinted from drill to drill, station to station, and it didn't start in college. It started in high school. So I think that's another interesting one as well. Now, the value in going to games, Scott Knudsen, I've told this story before, and I'm not going to retell it. I went to watch Earl Thomas and Deion Beasley in high school, and Toby Foreman, who's the head coach in the clean area, said, have you seen the linebacker at Jasper? I have not. He said, really, really good player. I went to Jasper before the game with Sean Weatherspoon, first-round pick. I won't go through it all again. He had one offer. So that's why you do go to games too.
All right, last question for today, and it's pretty much a quick one here. Odin Horns, how many team sacks will Texas have in 2024? Call your shot. What's the total, guys?
I'm going ultra positive. I'm going to say 40 because that puts you in the number you want to get to.
Bobby?
I'll go 34, 35.
They had 32 last year.
Yeah, I think they'll be slightly improved. I also think that they're going to be in a more run-heavy conference, Jerry. So that's going to cut down on your numbers. We were going over the defensive teams last night. You know, a lot of these guys, we were talking about who's the next Longhorn that's going to have 10 sacks. And I think Omenahu had 9.5. Jackson Jeffcoat and Cedric Reed had 10 back in like 2013 or something. The issue that you have in the SEC is none of those guys last year had 10 sacks at all. I'm telling you, it's a much more run heavier time and also ball control offense there. They want to keep their defenses off the field. Whereas a lot of Big 12 teams were like run and gun, play as many plays as you can, get to the line of scrimmage and snap, which creates more plays, right? And more opportunities for sacks. It's just not the case in the SEC. It's going to be hard to get 40 sacks. It just will be. I think 34, 35. Improvement, but, maybe not enough.
And here's the thing.
I should say not enough, maybe not to the level Jerry's thinking, in my opinion.
Here's there's a couple of caveats with that. You could get to a 40 number, but you play Colorado State, UTSA, and ULM Monroe. So that you might have to dig deeper into a number like that, right? I think more important than the sack number at the end of the day. Now, the higher your sack number goes, the more hits on quarterback, the more you're affecting down and distance. And I think that is going to be really what Texas focuses on this year. I think they're going to have to maximize this team, affect down and distance a little more. So more than the number of sacks, total number of sacks, the higher that number gets up, the more you're affecting down and distance with hits, timing, things such as that on quarterback. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I will say this, under Steve Sarkisian, this is easily the best pass rushing roster he's had. Not even close.
Hey, Jerry, this is a good number against. If they don't get 3 against Colorado State, a team that likes to throw the ball around, that will not be good. That will be a bad omen. If they get more than 3, I think it's a good omen. Not necessarily all telling, but that Nate's got a point here where early on we'll be able to know a little bit more about just how good the pass rush is.
Wait, I got to bring this up. CJ7, where are you at?
Just thought Twisters, keep your head down. That one?
I don't know. If he's talking about a movie, I might have missed something in the chat. Or there's
a new movie called Twisters.
Oh,
it's the follow-on to the
remake.
original.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. We want to thank them, along with Gooder and Babel, for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in for the super chats, the great questions. Bobby, what do you have coming down the pipe later today?
Well, we got the winning drive at 4:30. We have Jerry and I are also going to get together for a little roundup on some stuff that we talked about today, as well as some new information that we're going to divulge here in a little bit. Then also we have a number of different things. Talking Ball is tonight again on TexasFootball.com right now. We are trying to get into that position where we're 10 days away, literally, from getting back on the football field. So we're starting and amping up our coverage of the football team itself as we get ready for the practice a week from Wednesday. Promo code right now, if you want to become an OG with us, OTFOG, use that promo code OTFOG on Texas Football. Special offer, $39.95 for an annual subscription. That's $20 off the regular rate.
There you go. All right. Well, for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Hook 'em.